South Africa has tendered its apologies to Nigeria over the xenophobic attacks on Nigerians living in the country. A special envoy of the South African president, Mr. Jeff Radebe, conveyed the apologies in a letter delivered to President Muhammadu Buhari at the State House in Abuja. The envoy says the attacks provide an opportunity for African leaders to work towards reducing unemployment and creating equality on the continent. Our State House correspondent Ibrahim Adra reports.
Over 180 Nigerians returning to the country from South Africa. They are fleeing attacks by citizens of their host country, living behind properties with dreams truncated. The attacks drew condemnation from across the continent, with Nigeria registering its displeasure. It also sent a special envoy to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Days later, South Africa has reciprocated the gesture. President Ramaphosa's special envoy delivered a message to President Muhammadu Buhari. He conveyed the message in clear terms.
Those incidents do not represent what we stand for as a constitutional democracy in South Africa, and the president has apologized for these incidents. And he has also instructed law enforcement agencies to leave no stone unturned, that all those involved must be brought to book so that the rule of law must prevail in South Africa.
It traces the role of Nigeria in the struggle against apartheid and the cordial relationship existing between the two countries. Mr. Radebe also gave figures of arrest, but on the issue of paying compensations to victims of the attacks, he wasn't as forthcoming.
There is a binational commission between South Africa and Nigeria, and on the 3rd of October, during President Buhari's state visit to South Africa, there will be detailed discussions that are going to be held there. I do understand that this issue of compensation restitution is part of the agenda items in the draft that the Nigerian government has presented to South Africa.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs clears the air on the status of the Nigerian High Commissioner to South Africa.
Has not been recalled, but he has been asked to come just to help in giving as comprehensive a picture of events there as possible to Mr. President.
The apologies from South Africa may be a smart diplomatic move, but even more important will be a change of attitude by its citizens. From the Presidential Villa, Abuja, Ibrahim Adra, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, all is set for the evacuation of the second batch of Nigerians returning from South Africa in the wake of xenophobic attacks on foreigners and foreign businesses. The Air Peace flight is expected to land at the OR Tambo Airport tomorrow following the evacuation. Now, hundreds of people, including South Africans, marched against xenophobia at the weekend, while President Ramaphosa's special envoys are in several countries, including Nigeria, as you've just seen, offering assurances of their commitment to peace. Our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia reports.
Evacuees from other provinces stranded in Johannesburg after the first flight last Thursday are being housed at this guest house by the Nigerian Consulate General. The Consul General, Godwin Adama, was there to find out how they are and to brief them ahead of the planned flight.
The lessons we learned, especially for those who had minor issues of documentation, we have tried to perfect that, and this morning we will continue to see each of them to enable us know what will be a challenge of anyone and sort it out today, to enable them fly out very well tomorrow. At the same time, we are going to meet with the host authorities, immigration, protocol and police security at the airport today to ensure that we agree on certain measures in terms of their processing tomorrow.
31-year-old Joseph Chukwebuka Okongu, a telephone technician, was billed to travel last Thursday. He changed his mind. Now he's back again, ready to go, but still with reservations.
I'm still thinking, going back to Nigeria, what am I gonna go there and do? That's why I could have go. But I was thinking, when I go there, I don't want to bother people. And then I have to be on my own focus, you understand? So that's why I couldn't go.
Peace Okafor is 13. Her mother, a South African, died 4 years ago. She says she is eager to go to a home she hopes to feel more welcoming with her father.
At school, people will be bullying me that I'm a foreigner, that I should go back to my country, and I don't really like it at all. So then so I told my father it's better we go to Nigeria.
Why I said I'm a bit scared, just because I don't know the job that is waiting for, because I can't just be idle in Nigeria like that, because it will be somehow, most of my mates are working in the bank. I studied agriculture, so that's the only thing that I tell you, if I remember it, I would be scared, but I'm very fine. I'm going home. No place like home, like they used to say.
Like Lois, it's a hopeful step for many to return home, hopeful that life would be more certain than what most here have known in the recent past. Some of those staying behind and doing business are not planning to leave.
Since I've been here for years, I haven't had any problem with anyone. And this place I'm staying is quiet. It's like out of South Africa. You won't even notice there's xenophobia in South Africa, you know. Only when you go to the downtown, you know that there's xenophobia. So, but people think that all over South Africa, people are being killed or being destroyed. No, it's some few places.
320 names are once again on the flight list. There are a few reserved names. Hopefully, everyone on that list will get on board this time. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the attacks in Saudi Arabia and the recent jump in oil prices occasioned by those attacks on oil installations will not have any significant positive impact on Nigeria's economy, and that's what experts have warned. Some of those who spoke to Channels Television say what could have translated into gains for the country is eroded by weak capacity in low-cost production, lack of refining capacity, and the inability of successive governments to manage earnings from the petrodollar resource. Our energy correspondent, Olu Phillips, reports.
Nigeria forms a part of a powerful 14 countries that make up the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. By implication, Nigeria is a part of an international organization that determines the global oil outlook so that the geopolitics of regions would have a direct or ripple effect on other producing countries, including Nigeria. Oil pricing is very critical to our national lives. It continues till date to determine how we plan our budget. Saudi Arabia, a key member of OPEC, had its world's largest oil processing facility and crude oil stabilization plant hit by coordinated strikes. The outcome? About half of the kingdom's oil capacity, or 5% of the daily global oil supply, was knocked out. Boom! It sent spikes into pricing of crude to above $70 a barrel in just 24 hours, though it has pitched at $60.20. Since we depend on selling of crude to earn and in turn fund our bills, an increase in the price of oil should have put a little more in our coffers, right? No, it doesn't work like that. And here are the reasons.
There's no doubt that there's no common sense or economic sense in sending the barrel up and importing finished products. It's a no-brainer that it will not pay us in the final analysis, unless we use very little of the commodity. But here we are, motor traffic and factories and manufacturing activities are demanding more and more energy to fire the turbines that run the economy. So really, it's not playing the ostrich. I think it's more like failing to face the reality of what we should do to control our own fortunes in terms of what we keep of what comes out of the ground as oil.
Combination of factors require attention. Our fiscals do not exactly support investment of petrodollar investors. We do not get to keep more from the resource which comes from the ground, meaning we refine far too less from our consumption capacity, so that even if we earn more from sales, we lose same monies paying trillions of naira on subsidy, which the government keeps denying. Essentially, we are holding on too strongly to a finite resource.
The question we must answer as a country is, what is Nigeria's own strategic national interests? Is it obeisance to a group we call OPEC? or is it our own strategic national interests? And the question here remains, what is Nigeria's own strategic national interest? And that's $1 million question. When we answer that, when we determine what our own strategic national interest is or are, then it becomes a no-brainer what we want to use our oil resource for.
Just last week in Abu Dhabi, Nigeria and Iraq agreed to cut production for price stability after several months of exemption, which the former Minister of State for Petroleum, Kachiku Ibe, helped to negotiate. The direct impact of this is we must stay within the 1.8 million barrels production bracket. So while the West, its allies, the Middle East actors, figure themselves out in this obvious game of relative economic strengths, Nigeria must begin to build realistic buffers for its economy and future. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Now, we'll have more on the impact of the Saudi attacks as it concerns us here in Nigeria, but we'll do that a bit later on in the bulletin. We move on to the judiciary now, and the acting chief judge of the Federal High Court, Justice John Toho, wants more judges to be recruited to justice delivery in the country. Speaking at the beginning of the 2019-2020 legal year, Justice Toho laments the heavy workload of litigation handled by judges of the Federal High Court. Our correspondent Amaka Okafor reports.
This special court session marks the beginning of the 2019-2020 legal year for the Federal High Court. The session affords the bar and the bench to state their mind on the state of the judiciary in the country, and one issue that is worrisome is the workload of cases handled by the judges. According to records from the Federal High Court, about 116,623 cases are pending in court.
It is obvious that the judges were overburdened with work in the last legal year. We therefore need to engage more judicial officers to help out. However, it does appear that there was no provision for appointment of judges in the current budget. I will make efforts to discuss with the relevant stakeholders to see to the possibility of facilitating the recruitment of more judicial officers.
Another issue that came to the fore at the session is the question of the independence of the judiciary.
We can only survive as a nation if the independence and vibrancy of the judiciary, particularly the non-interference with the thoughts and decision-making processes of the lordship, are guaranteed and protected. Society is diminished when judges are robbed of their independent minds and thought processes, and the confidence of the ordinary person in the judiciary is thereby diminished, if not destroyed.
As always, I assure you once more of the commitment of the Office of the Attorney General to the growth of healthy relationship with this court in a manner that promotes genuine cooperation without undermining the independence of this hallowed arm of government.
It's a new legal year, and it is expected that the Federal High Court will hit the ground running, ensuring the justices of all cases before it. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.